Good morning to our listeners across the country. I am Jane Pauley, and you are tuning in to Healthy Kidneys After 60, the space where we slow down to talk about the things that truly matter as we navigate our golden years. We often hear that health is a crown that only the sick can see, but for those of us over 60, that crown sometimes feels a bit heavy, doesn't it? We try so hard to do everything right. We walk, we rest, and above all, we eat our greens. But what if the very things we were told would save us are the ones quietly putting us at risk? Today, we are joined by a man who has spent decades at the intersection of clinical neurosurgery and medical journalism, helping millions understand the complex machinery of the human body. Dr. Sanjay Gupta, it is an absolute honor to have you here to help us unwrap a very startling truth about our dinner plates.
Thank you, Jane. It is a pleasure to be here with you. You know, in my years of practicing medicine and reporting on health, I have seen a recurring theme. People in their 60s, 70s, and 80s are some of the most dedicated and disciplined individuals when it comes to their health. They genuinely want to do the right thing. But the body we live in at 70 isn't the same vessel we steered at 30. Our kidneys filter differently, our arteries have a different rhythm, and the way our medications interact with a simple bowl of salad can be life-altering. I'm here today not to tell anyone to stop eating vegetables, perish the thought, but to share some perspective on why healthy is a relative term that must be tailored to the wisdom of our age and the reality of our prescriptions. It's about balance, not fear, and I'm looking forward to diving deep into these stories with you.
Dr. Gupta, I want to start with something that I think will resonate with every single person listening right now. There is a specific kind of fear that haunts the elderly. It's the silent transition. One night, you go to bed feeling like you've done everything right. You had your vegetable soup, you took your pills, you did your crossword, and then the next morning, everything is different. The hand doesn't move the way it should, or the words just won't come out. It's heartbreaking because these are often the people who are trying the hardest to be healthy. I hear from so many seniors who say, Jane, I've followed the books, I've replaced the steak with spinach, I've cut the sugar, so why did this happen to me? It feels like a betrayal by the body, or worse, a betrayal by the very food we were told was our medicine. Is it true that as we pass 60, the rules of the game change so fundamentally that even a perfect diet can become a hidden minefield?
Jane, you've touched on the very heart of the matter, and I can hear the concern in your voice because it's a concern I see in the eyes of my patients every single week. To answer your question, yes, the biological landscape shifts dramatically after 60. Think of your body like a vintage car. It's beautiful and capable, but the fuel system is more sensitive. Our kidneys, which are the great filters of our blood, naturally lose some of their efficiency as we age. Our blood vessels become less elastic and our metabolism slows down. But the most critical factor that people often overlook is the polypharmacy reality, the fact that many seniors are taking medications for blood pressure, cholesterol, or blood thinning. When you introduce high volumes of certain superfoods into a body that is also processing these potent drugs, you aren't just eating, you are performing a complex chemical experiment in your kitchen. I've seen cases where a patient's devotion to a new health trend, like a daily concentrated green smoothie, actually counteracted their life-saving medication. It isn't that the vegetable turned evil overnight, it's that the body's ability to manage that specific nutrient load while on medication has reached a tipping point. We have to stop looking at food as just calories and start looking at it as a biological signal that needs to be synchronized with our aging systems.
That is a powerful image, a chemical experiment in the kitchen. It's almost frightening to think that my morning routine could be fighting against the doctor's orders. I think many of us feel that if we just eat enough of the good stuff, we can somehow outrun the aging process or the need for medicine. There's this heavy sense of all or nothing in our culture. But what you're saying suggests that the danger isn't in the greens themselves, but in the lack of stability. I've heard of people who suddenly decide to go all in on a health kick, drinking green juices every single morning because they want to feel young again. Is that where we go wrong? Is it the suddenness, the intensity of trying to be too healthy, too fast that trips up the system and leads to these emergencies?
Exactly, Jane. The word I want everyone to remember today is consistency. In medicine, especially when dealing with the brain and the heart, we love stability. The body thrives on a predictable environment. When someone who hasn't eaten much greenery suddenly starts consuming a massive green smoothie every morning because they read it's a detox, They are flooding their system with vitamin K, among other things. Now, if that person is on a blood thinner like warfarin, that sudden flood of vitamin K tells the blood to clot while the medicine is trying to keep the blood flowing. It's a literal tug of war inside your veins. If the vegetable wins, a clot can form, and that leads to the very stroke they were trying to avoid. It's a tragic irony. This is why I tell my patients, don't be a weekend health warrior. Don't have a giant kale salad on Monday and then nothing but toast on Tuesday. The goal is a steady, moderate stream of nutrients. We need to move away from the idea that more is always better. After 60, just enough is often the perfect amount. This brings me to a very specific and common scenario that I want to warn our listeners about, because it's something as simple as a morning habit that can set off a chain reaction leading straight to the hospital.
It's so counterintuitive, isn't it? We've spent our whole lives being told to eat more vegetables, and now, when we feel most vulnerable, we're learning that there's a catch. It makes me wonder about the specific things we do that we think are helping. For instance, I know so many people who swear by their morning juicing routine. They think they are giving their kidneys and their heart a head start for the day. But you're suggesting that even a single glass of something pure could be the thing that knocks the whole system out of rhythm. Could something as innocent as a morning green smoothie really be the catalyst that causes a stroke or a major health crisis for someone who is just trying to stay alive for their grandkids?
It absolutely can, and I've stood at the bedside of patients where that was the exact trigger. It's not about the purity of the juice, it's about the pharmacology of the juice. When you liquefy pounds of greens into one glass, you are delivering a medicinal dose of nutrients that your body might not be prepared to handle alongside your actual medicine. We're going to talk about a specific patient later who experienced exactly this. But the takeaway for now is that our bodies after 60 require a conversation between our plates and our prescriptions. The most dangerous phrase in senior health might be, but it's just natural. Well, lightning is natural too, but you wouldn't want it hitting your house. We have to respect the power of these foods and understand that in the delicate balance of an aging body, timing and dose are everything.
Dr. Gupta, I often sit with friends who are in their late 60s and 70s, and the conversation almost always turns to this feeling of betrayal by our own efforts. They tell me they have cleared their pantries of everything processed, they spend half their retirement pension at the organic market, and they follow every health headline they see on the news. There is this haunting question that lingers in every senior center and every quiet living room. If I am doing everything right, if I am eating the cleanest diet possible, why am I still waking up in an emergency room? It feels as though there is a missing piece of the puzzle that no one is talking about, a secret friction between our virtuous habits and the biological reality of aging that makes all that hard work feel like it's for nothing.
You have articulated the exact frustration that I heard from a gentleman named Mr. Allen, a 74-year-old living at 418 Cedar Ridge Doctor in Madison, Wisconsin. Mr. Allen was the embodiment of discipline. He was a retired teacher who treated his health like a final exam he had to pass. He was on warfarin to manage a heart rhythm issue, a very common blood thinner, and he knew he had to be careful. But he started reading about the miraculous benefits of green smoothies for longevity and decided to supercharge his mornings by blending massive amounts of spinach, chard, and kale. He thought he was building a shield around his heart, but within weeks he was rushed to the hospital with an ischemic stroke. What happened was a biological collision. Warfarin works by blocking the action of vitamin K to prevent clots. By suddenly flooding his system with vitamin K from those concentrated greens, he essentially turned off his medication. The vitamin K won the battle, his blood thickened, and a clot traveled to his brain. It was devastating because he truly believed he was saving his own life with every sip of that green juice.
It is absolutely chilling to think that a man like Mr. Allen in his own kitchen in Madison could be inadvertently neutralizing his life-saving medicine just by trying to be healthy. We are taught that vegetables are the ultimate good, but for someone over 60, it seems the definition of good is much more fragile. Is the mistake that we aren't told about the dosage of these superfoods, or is it that we don't realize how much our internal chemistry has narrowed its margin for error as we've aged? It makes me wonder if there are other habits we consider gold standards for health that are actually dangerous because they are too extreme for a body that needs stability above all else.
That is exactly the point, Jane. The mistake isn't the spinach. It's the sudden extreme shift in the dose of that spinach. In Mr. Allen's case, his INR levels, which measure how fast his blood clots, were jumping all over the place because his diet was a moving target. The tragedy is that many seniors think they can compensate for their age by being more radical with their diet. They think if 1 cup of broccoli is good, 5 cups blended into a juice must be 5 times better. But after 60, your body craves a steady state. When you are on a medication like a blood thinner, your doctor adjusts the dose based on your typical diet. If you suddenly decide to become a raw food enthusiast overnight, you are changing the rules of the game without telling your doctor or your blood vessels. I see this health compensation error all the time. People feel a little slower or a little older, so they try to fix it with a massive influx of one specific nutrient. But the body doesn't want a revolution. It wants a gentle, predictable rhythm. Consistency in your vitamin K intake is far more important than the total amount. If Mr. Allen had just kept his portions modest and consistent, that medication would have done its job, and he would likely still be enjoying his walks in Wisconsin today.
There is a very popular movement right now that tells us nature has the answer for everything, especially when it comes to managing high blood pressure. I see so many seniors reaching for things like beet juice or concentrated root extracts because they want to reduce their reliance on chemicals and pills. It sounds so poetic and right to heal yourself with the earth's bounty, but I worry that we might be oversimplifying a very complex system. If someone is already taking a prescription to keep their blood pressure in a safe zone, and then they add a potent natural vasodilator on top of it, aren't they essentially double dosing themselves without a safety net?
You've hit on a very dangerous misconception, Jane. Beets are a perfect example. They are incredibly high in nitrates, which the body converts into nitric oxide. This molecule tells your blood vessels to relax and widen, which naturally lowers blood pressure. For a young athlete, this is a performance enhancer. But for a 70-year-old whose arteries are perhaps a bit stiffer and who is already taking a daily ACE inhibitor or a beta blocker, this can be a recipe for disaster. The problem is that blood pressure isn't like a thermostat you can just keep turning down. If it drops too low, especially during the night, the heart doesn't have enough pressure to push blood up against gravity to the brain. We call this hypoperfusion. When the brain doesn't get enough oxygenated blood, even for a short period, you can experience a watershed stroke or severe dizziness that leads to a fall. Many seniors drink these juices in the evening, thinking they are doing something heart-healthy before bed, not realizing that blood pressure naturally dips while we sleep.
So, in our quest to avoid the side effects of a pill, we might be creating a much more catastrophic side effect like a stroke or a broken hip from a midnight fall. It's a frightening thought because it turns our kitchen into a pharmacy without a pharmacist. If someone truly loves these foods, is there a way to enjoy them without putting their brain at risk? Or are we at a point where natural simply becomes too unpredictable once we reach a certain age and a certain list of prescriptions?
It's not that we have to ban beets from the kitchen, but we have to treat them with the same respect we give to a medical prescription. The danger is the stacking effect. If you are going to use food as medicine, you have to monitor it like medicine. I tell my patients that if they want to incorporate something as potent as beet juice, they should do it in small amounts, preferably during the day when they are active and their blood pressure is naturally higher. And they must also use a home blood pressure cuff to see how their body reacts. The most important thing is communication with their physician. If your natural remedy is working so well that your blood pressure is hitting 90/60, that's not a success. That's a crisis waiting to happen. We have to move past the idea that natural means harmless. Everything that has the power to heal also has the power to harm if the context is wrong. In the aging body, the context is everything. And the margin between healthy low and dangerously low becomes very, very thin.
I'm thinking about the quiet rituals of the evening, that time when many seniors feel they are finally taking a moment for themselves. It's so common to hear about a health tonic or a specific juice taken right before bed to cleanse the system or protect the heart overnight. We have this image of our bodies being repaired while we sleep, so it feels like the perfect time to give it an extra boost. But I'm starting to realize from what you're saying that this might be the most vulnerable window of the entire 24-hour cycle. Are we inadvertently setting a trap for ourselves in the dark?
That is a hauntingly accurate way to put it, Jane. I remember the case of Mrs. Jenkins, a 79-year-old woman who lived at 2290 W Desert Bloom Saint in Phoenix, Arizona. Mrs. Jenkins was a lovely woman who was very proactive about her health. She was on a standard regimen for hypertension. She had read that beet juice was a miracle for circulation, so she started a nightly ritual of drinking a large glass of it right before she went to sleep. She thought she was protecting her heart through the night. Instead, she woke up in the middle of the night to use the bathroom, felt a sudden violent wave of vertigo, and collapsed. When she arrived at the hospital, we discovered she had suffered a cerebellar stroke, a stroke in the part of the brain that controls balance. What happened was exactly what we feared. The combination of her blood pressure medication and the nitrates in the beet juice caused her pressure to bottom out during the night. Her brain, particularly the cerebellum, was starved of blood flow. It wasn't that she was getting old and weak. It was that her evening health ritual had pushed her system over the edge.
To think of Mrs. Jenkins in Phoenix trying so hard to be virtuous and ending up with a stroke because of a glass of juice is just heartbreaking. It's the ultimate right thing at the wrong time scenario. It seems that for those over 60, the ritual of health needs to be much more calculated. How do we break this cycle of trying to hack our health with these tips we find online? It feels like we are desperate for control over our aging bodies. But that very desire for control is leading us to take risks we don't even understand.
You've touched on a profound psychological point, Jane. As we age, we feel a loss of control, and these natural cures offer a sense of agency. But true agency comes from understanding your specific biology. For Mrs. Jenkins, the solution wouldn't have been to fear beets forever, but to understand that her body handles blood pressure differently at 2 a.m. than it does at 2 p.m. I always tell people, if you are over 60, the miracle is in the middle ground. If you want to try a new health food, don't do it at night and don't do it in a concentrated form. Start with a small amount of the whole vegetable during lunch. And most importantly, listen to the quiet signals. If you feel a little lightheaded when you stand up, or if your morning blood pressure readings are consistently lower than they used to be, don't celebrate it as a victory for your diet. See it as a signal to recalibrate. We have to stop looking for one weird trick to save us and start respecting the delicate overnight rhythm of our circulation.
Dr. Gupta, we live in the era of the superfood. It seems every week there is a new leaf or a new berry that is touted as the secret to eternal youth. For the generation over 60, these trends can feel like a lifeline. Kale, in particular, has become almost like a religion. People are putting it in everything, salads, smoothies, even baking it into chips, because they've been told it's the ultimate anti-aging tool. But I've heard whispers in the medical community that for certain people, this green goddess might have a darker side. Is it possible that in our rush to embrace the latest health craze, we are actually causing our internal systems to stall?
It is more than possible. It is a clinical reality I have seen. Let's talk about the cruciferous family, kale, broccoli, cauliflower. They are nutritional powerhouses, but they contain compounds called goitrogens. In certain contexts, especially when eaten raw and in very large quantities, these compounds can interfere with how your thyroid gland uses iodine. Now, for a healthy 30-year-old, the body compensates easily, but after 60, the thyroid often becomes a bit sluggish. When you flood a sensitive system with raw goitrogens daily, you can actually suppress thyroid function. I've seen patients who come in complaining of brain fog, feeling constantly cold, gaining weight for no reason, and feeling a profound, heavy fatigue. They think they are just getting old, or maybe they fear they have early dementia. In reality, their superfood habit is slowing their entire metabolism to a crawl. They are trying to run a marathon on a system that is being chemically braked by their own diet.
That is such a confusing message for a senior to hear. They are eating the kale to stay sharp and energetic, but the kale is actually making them feel foggy and cold. It's enough to make anyone want to give up and just eat whatever they want. I can imagine the frustration of a patient who is told their perfect salad is the reason they can't think clearly. How do we navigate this without becoming afraid of the produce aisle? Is there a middle path where we can get the benefits of these vegetables without triggering this slowing down of the body?
The middle path is paved with a bit of old-fashioned kitchen wisdom, heat. Cooking these vegetables, steaming, sautéing, or roasting significantly reduces the goitrogenic effect while still preserving most of the fiber and vitamins. The problem arises with the raw juice and massive raw salad culture. For my older patients, I suggest diversity. Don't let kale be the only green you eat. Rotate your vegetables, Use spinach one day, cooked bok choy the next, and maybe some roasted carrots the day after. And most importantly, if you are feeling those symptoms, the coldness, the fog, the unexplained tiredness, don't just write it off as aging. Ask your doctor for a simple thyroid panel. It's about being an observer of your own body. If your healthy diet makes you feel worse, it isn't healthy for you. We have to stop outsourcing our health to headlines and start listening to how our own cells are responding to what we put in our mouths.
There are these small, nagging symptoms that we often dismiss as just a part of getting older. We wake up with a dry mouth, or we feel a bit dizzy when we first get out of bed, or we find ourselves making 3 or 4 trips to the bathroom every night. We tell ourselves, well, I'm 70 now, this is just how it is. But I'm beginning to suspect that these aren't just signs of a birthday passing. They might be the body's early warning system screaming that something is fundamentally out of balance. Are we missing the quiet signs of a coming storm?
We absolutely are, Jane, and often it's because we don't connect our healthy snacks to these symptoms. I remember Mr. Raymond, an 82-year-old man who lived at 7802 Palmetto Lake Seat in Tampa, Florida. Mr. Raymond was very concerned about his blood pressure and was taking a prescribed diuretic, a water pill, to help manage it. Because he wanted to be extra healthy, he started snacking on large amounts of raw celery every night before bed. He had heard celery was a natural diuretic and was great for his heart. What he didn't realize was that he was essentially taking a double dose of diuretics right before he went to sleep. He started waking up with a bone-dry mouth, severe leg cramps, and he was getting up 5 times a night to use the bathroom. One morning, he stood up too quickly, his blood pressure crashed because he was severely dehydrated, and he suffered a fall that resulted in a minor stroke due to the sudden drop in cerebral blood flow. He thought he was flushing out toxins, but he was actually draining his brain of the fluid pressure it needed to stay alive.
Mr. Raymond's story is such a powerful cautionary tale for anyone living in a warm climate like Florida or for anyone on blood pressure meds. It's the invisible dehydration. We don't think of celery as a drug, but in his case, it acted exactly like one. It makes me wonder how many other seniors are sitting at home right now feeling dizzy or cramping up and thinking they just need to eat more of these cleansing foods when they are actually pushing themselves further into the red zone. How can they tell the difference between a normal sign of aging and a warning that their diet is actually dehydrating their brain?
The key is to look for new or worsening patterns. If you've always gone to the bathroom once a night and suddenly it's 4 times, that's not aging, that's a change in your physiology. If your mouth feels like it's full of cotton every morning, your body is telling you that your blood is becoming too thick because of fluid loss. Thick blood is slow-moving blood, and slow-moving blood is prone to clotting. I tell my patients to be very wary of diuretic foods in the evening, like celery, asparagus, or even excessive parsley, especially if they are already on blood pressure medication. Move those foods to the middle of the day when you are actively drinking water to compensate. And please don't ignore the dizziness. If you feel woozy when you stand up, it's a sign that your pressure is too low or your volume is too low. Don't wait for a fall or a stroke to take it seriously. Your body speaks in whispers before it screams in a crisis. Listening to the dry mouth and the leg cramps is the best way to prevent the emergency room visit later.
Dr. Gupta, I want to talk about the reality of the kitchen for many people in their 70s and 80s. Sometimes the beautiful, fresh farmer's market hall isn't an option. Maybe they live alone, maybe their mobility is limited, or maybe they're just tired of the prep work. So they turn to the pantry, canned vegetables, canned soups, the convenient way to get their greens. It feels like a good compromise. It's still vegetables, right? But I worry that there's a hidden cost inside those cans that is slowly wearing down the cardiovascular health of our seniors without them even realizing it.
This is a major issue in senior nutrition, Jane. We call it the sodium trap. When you live alone, a can of green beans or a vegetable soup seems like the perfect, easy meal. But the salt used to preserve those vegetables is often staggering. For someone over 60 whose kidneys are already working harder to process waste and whose arteries are less forgiving, a single can of healthy vegetable soup can contain more than half of their recommended daily sodium intake. The American Heart Association recommends no more than 2,300 milligrams a day, with an ideal limit of 1,500 milligrams for those with hypertension. When you flood your system with that much salt in one sitting, your body holds on to water to dilute it. That extra water increases the volume of your blood, which pushes your blood pressure up, straining your heart and the delicate vessels in your brain. It's a direct hit to your stroke risk, all from a healthy can of vegetables.
It's so predatory in a way. The labels say vegetable, so we think we are safe. But for a senior on a fixed income or with limited energy, is a dangerous shortcut. We can't expect everyone to cook from scratch every day, but we also can't ignore the fact that this hidden salt is a silent killer. Is there a way to make the pantry safer? I've heard about rinsing the vegetables or looking for specific labels, but does that really make enough of a difference to protect a heart that is already under stress?
It makes a massive difference, Jane. I tell my patients that if they must use canned goods, they should look for the no salt added or low sodium versions as a rule. But here is a doctor's secret that everyone can use. Simply pouring those canned vegetables into a colander and rinsing them under cold water for 2 minutes can reduce the sodium content by as much as 20 to 40%. It's a simple act that takes seconds but can save your kidneys a lot of work. Also, we need to rethink convenience. Frozen vegetables are often just as easy as canned, but they are usually frozen at the peak of freshness without the need for high-salt preservatives. I tell my patients to fill their freezers instead of their pantries. It's about being a savvy consumer. Don't let the word vegetable on the front of the label blind you to the sodium on the back. After 60, your margin for salt error is very small, and opening a can shouldn't be a risk factor for a heart attack.
I've noticed that as we get older, our relationship with the evening meal changes. We often want something simple, comforting, and what we perceive as light. I know so many people who have replaced a heavy dinner with a simple baked potato or a side of corn, thinking that because it's a vegetable and it's low in fat, it's the perfect way to end the day. They go to bed feeling virtuous because they didn't have a steak. But I'm hearing more and more about how these high-starch, healthy choices might be causing a roller coaster of blood sugar that wreaks havoc on our systems while we sleep.
That brings to mind the story of Mrs. Linda Morris, a 70-year-old woman living at 1557 Brookstone Ave in Columbus, Ohio. Linda was very conscious of her weight and her heart health, so she decided that her evening rule was to eat only a large baked potato with a little bit of broccoli, no butter, no sour cream. She thought she was being incredibly disciplined. However, she started waking up in the middle of the night with her heart racing, feeling sweaty and anxious. When we looked at her metabolic profile, we realized that the baked potato, which has a very high glycemic index, was causing her blood sugar to spike rapidly and then crash just as she was falling into deep sleep. This sugar crash was triggering a stress response in her body, releasing adrenaline, which was putting an immense strain on her heart and blood vessels in the middle of the night. Her virtuous dinner was actually putting her at risk for a nocturnal cardiac event.
It's so ironic that Linda in Columbus was trying to do the lean thing and ended up causing a stress response that felt like a panic attack. It seems we've been taught to fear fat so much that we've run straight into the arms of high glycemic starches that are just as dangerous for an aging metabolism. If a baked potato isn't the answer, what is? How do we find a dinner that actually allows the body to rest instead of forcing it into a midnight chemical crisis? It feels like we have to relearn how to eat all over again once we hit 70.
We don't have to relearn everything, but we do have to understand balance differently. For someone like Linda, the solution wasn't to give up the potato forever, but to change the context. If you have a smaller portion of that potato, but add some healthy protein like a piece of fish, or some healthy fats like avocado or olive oil, you slow down the absorption of those sugars. The goal for a senior's dinner should be steady energy. You want a meal that gently releases fuel over several hours, not a rocket ship that crashes at midnight. I also suggest moving the heavier starches to lunch when you are active. Dinner should be about high-fiber vegetables, the non-starchy kind like peppers, zucchini, or greens paired with a good protein. A balanced dinner is truly a gift to your morning self. You wake up with stable blood sugar, a rested heart, and a clear mind. We have to stop thinking of dinner as a reward or a punishment and start seeing it as the foundation for a safe night's sleep.
There is something so nostalgic about fermented foods, the pickles, the sauerkraut, the kimchi. My grandmother always had a jar of something pickling on the counter, and today we're told these are superfoods for our gut microbiome. For a senior who might be struggling with digestion, these foods seem like a godsend. But then I see the nutrition labels on a single pickle or a serving of sauerkraut, and my heart sinks. It feels like we're being told two different stories, one that says heal your gut and another that says protect your blood pressure. How is a person supposed to choose?
This is what I call the probiotic paradox. While the fermentation process creates wonderful bacteria for your gut, the traditional way to achieve that fermentation is through a massive amount of salt. For a younger person, the gut benefits might outweigh the salt intake, but for the over 60 population, it's a double trouble situation. A single large pickle can contain over 300 to 500 milligrams of sodium. If you have a few slices with lunch and a bit of sauerkraut with dinner, you've already hit your sodium limit before you even count your actual meals. I see many patients who treat pickles like a free snack because they are low in calories. But for an aging heart, calories are often less dangerous than sodium. That salt creates an immediate pull of water into the bloodstream, spiking blood pressure and putting immense pressure on the kidneys to filter it out.
So many of us use these foods as a way to wake up our taste buds as we age, because sometimes food starts to taste a bit bland. It's a tragedy that the very thing that makes the meal enjoyable, that salty, fermented kick, is the thing that might be pushing our blood pressure into the danger zone. Is there any room for these traditional favorites in a healthy senior diet? Or do we have to say goodbye to the pickle jar for good to keep our kidneys and our brains safe?
We don't have to say goodbye, but we have to change our ritual. First, look for low sodium or refrigerated versions, which sometimes use less salt than the shelf-stable jars. Second, treat them as a garnish, not a side dish. A thin slice of pickle for flavor is very different from eating 2 whole spears as a snack. Third, balance the salt by increasing your potassium intake with foods like bananas or spinach and by drinking plenty of water. But the most important advice I give is never eat these high-sodium treats in the evening. Your body is much less efficient at processing a salt load while you are sleeping. If you love your sauerkraut, have a small spoonful at lunch when your metabolism is at its peak. And always, always monitor your blood pressure. If you notice a spike the day after eating fermented foods, your body is giving you a clear answer. We have to prioritize our arteries over our taste buds as we get older because a healthy gut doesn't do much good if the heart and brain are under constant salt-induced stress.
Dr. Gupta, we have covered a lot of ground today, and I'll be honest, it's a lot to take in. I can imagine our listeners sitting in their kitchens right now looking at their spinach, their beets, and their pickle jars with a newfound sense of hesitation. It's a scary thought that the healthy life we've been trying to build could have these hidden cracks, but I don't want us to leave people with a sense of fear. I want to leave them with a sense of wisdom. As we wrap up, how do we shift the narrative from what I can't eat to how I can live better in this beautiful, complex stage of life? Is it possible to find a harmony between our food and our age?
I am so glad you asked that, Jane, because the last thing I want is for anyone to stop eating their vegetables. Vegetables are the heroes of the human diet. The message today isn't about fear, it's about respect, respecting the incredible changing machinery of your body after 60. We have to realize that our 70-year-old kidneys and hearts are like fine musical instruments. They require a more delicate touch and a more consistent tuning. The betrayal only happens when we try to force a young person's extreme diet onto an older person's sophisticated system. If you take away anything from our conversation, let it be this. After 60, your health is not found in a superfood trend or a natural miracle. It is found in the quiet, steady rhythm of your daily choices. It is found in the communication between you, your plate, and your doctor.
That is so grounding. It's about being a partner to your body rather than a commander of it. I think that shift in perspective is what changes aging into thriving. Before we go, could you leave our listeners with those 3 golden principles we mentioned? Something they can write down on a sticky note and put on their fridge as a reminder that they are in control and that they can be healthy without being extreme?
I would love to. First, be consistent, not extreme. If you take blood thinners, keep your greens steady. Don't go from 0 to a giant smoothie overnight. Stability is your brain's best friend. Second, watch the triple threat and salt, water, and timing. Reduce the sodium, keep the water flowing, and try to avoid active foods like diuretics or heavy starches in the evening. Let your body rest at night. And third, cook, diversify, and listen. Steam those cruciferous veggies to protect your thyroid. Eat a rainbow of different foods rather than just one superfood. And if you feel cold, foggy, or dizzy, listen to that signal and talk to your doctor. It has been such an honor to share these stories with you, Jane. To everyone listening, your age is your wisdom, and using that wisdom in your kitchen is the greatest gift you can give yourself. Thank you for having me.
Dr. Gupta, thank you for your warmth, your clarity, and for reminding us that our golden years can be healthy and vibrant if we just listen a little more closely to the body we've lived in for so long. To our listeners, thank you for joining us on Healthy Kidneys After 60. We hope today's conversation brings you a sense of peace and a clearer path forward. If you found this helpful, please subscribe to our podcast and share it with a friend who might need to hear these stories. We have so much more to explore together in our upcoming episodes. Until next time, take care of yourselves, stay steady, and be well. This is Jane Pauley, wishing you a beautiful and healthy day.